Today, I would like to talk about a topic that may feel deeply sensitive for many of you. I want to talk about the topic of death, passing of people whom we love. Maybe this is the right moment to talk about death more openly, especially considering there is a huge number of departures, something that's probably happening on a more rapid pace. It's not just personal anymore, it's collective. It's family, communities, entire societies feeling the impact of sudden departures, early departures, and unexpected departures. And when something becomes so widespread, it actually forces us to look at it differently, not from the lens of fear, but with honesty and without the denial, but with awareness. So maybe these departures are a part of something bigger coming, a huge shift in consciousness, a recalibration of time, a collective awakening unfolding in ways we can't see from where we stand here on a ground level. If that's true, then grief becomes not just a personal experience, but a doorway into a deeper understanding of life itself. Now, when we look at death through a wider lens, the question becomes, what do we do with the grief that remains? So I've been holding this perspective for a while, particularly since 2023, more so in 2025. I've been holding the perspective that there is a collective transitioning happening. More souls, let's say if more souls are choosing to transition now, then maybe something large is happening, something we don't fully understand yet. Maybe these departures are a part of a bigger shift in consciousness. These are metaphysical ideas, about why some people come into our lives and some leave sooner than others. But if I sit here and claim I know the exact reason for every individual loss, I'd be lying. I'm not here to pretend I have the final answers. I'm here to offer few perspectives that you may want to reflect on, especially because losing someone, particularly a young person or a child, can be one of the hardest experiences a human being can go through. Naturally, the question rises, why? Why do we come into this world only to face grief that feels immensely unbearable? Why do some lives end before they've begun to unfold? Is this world cruel? Is it unmerciful? Are we living in some kind of punishment or cosmic mistake? These are real questions. These are human questions, and today I'm going to explore them with honesty and compassion. First, let's look at the word existentialism. In existential philosophy, death is seen as the ultimate reminder that life is finite. It pushes us to ask what matters, what we value, and how we choose to live. There's no punishment, there's no reward system attached to it, just the reality that existence is fragile and meaningful at the same time because of its impermanence. In Eastern traditions, like say Hinduism, Buddhism, death is part of a cycle. The soul continues, carrying lessons from one life to the next. It's called reincarnation. It's not an ending, but a transition, a movement from one state of consciousness to another. In Abrahamic religions, in conventional religion, death is a doorway into another realm, into a heaven, a paradise, a spiritual continuation, suggesting that this field here is the realm of hell. The emphasis is on a reunion, a justice after death, and a divine order, a salvation, if you like. Now, in the freedom teachings, death is understood very differently. Essentially, the original human template, the angelic human, was not ever designed to die. Death is not a natural state, but a distortion introduced into the system. Consciousness was meant to move between densities through natural expansion not through biological decay. We're meant to transmigrate. We're meant to take our atoms and move on to the next density level and evolve. In this view, the body is still spiritual, but it's operating on a compromised template. This is the state of our beingness now. Our body is still spiritual, but it's operating on a compromised template. Today, I'll be focusing on exploring the Freedom Teachings perspective and my own observations so that it may help people out there who are steering away from religious interpretations. Because truth be said, conventional religion cannot answer any of these questions. None. Not in the same light spirituality does. What I'm sensing is a collective sense of transition, a collective transition. Beyond the confines of traditional belief systems, whether religious, cultural, or simply inherited, many of us feel like we're stuck in a framework that does not fully explain the deeper experiences of life, especially when it comes to loss. It's as if we're trying to understand something vast through a lens that's way, way too small. If we were told and knew deeply that the soul that left was in a state of peace, or freedom, or clarity, would the grief feel different? Would we be able to hold both truths at once? The human pain of losing someone we love and the spiritual understanding that their departure was not a punishment, but a continuation of their own evolutionary path. Think of that. Some people feel trapped inside the limitation of forgetting their spiritual essence and remembering only the physical world that they interact with directly. Of course, that makes loss almost unbearable. The familiar presence of someone they love who are no longer there. The kind of loss that can hollow out meaning itself. Loss that can tear us apart and render our world dark, meaningless, full of suffering, unfairness, and questions that refuse to resolve. When someone you love dies, especially young, it can reinforce the sense that life is so cruel. But some others move through the world, feel something different, a quiet freedom and sense of meaning or an acceptance that's not tied to any doctrine. They don't deny the pain, but they don't interpret life as punishment either. They sense a larger context, even if they can't fully name it, a feeling that existence stretches beyond what the physical eye can hold. Both experiences are valid, by the way. Both are human. Both point to the same underlying truth. We are trying to make sense of something that sits far beyond the limits of our everyday understanding. My own personal perspective. Allow me to swim in my own mind for a moment and offer a personal perspective. Okay, so let's examine death through a spiritual lens. And before I even use the word spiritual, I want to clarify what I mean by the word spiritual. When I say that word, I'm referring to anything that exists beyond the physical. I'm referring to the metaphysical, the unseen, the intangible, what you cannot touch, what you cannot directly experience through your five senses. Not fantasy or superstition, but aspects of existence we can't measure, yet somehow we sense it's there. Spirituality in this context is the shift from looking out for meaning to looking in, from outward to inward. It's a process of moving beyond limits of your five senses to understand the deeper layers and systems that make up life. How we came here, why we exist, and what the entire experience of us being here is actually about. In my view, if we recognize that everything has a spiritual dimension, everything, your tables, your floor, your walls, your objects, all your objects, everything, your cars, your pen, your book, everything holds a spiritual dimension. When you recognize that everything has a spiritual dimension, then the body becomes more than just flesh and bone. It becomes a vessel for consciousness, the temporary home for whatever animates us. Some teachings, like the freedom teachings, go further and describe the body itself as a spiritual object, but denser in form, less crystalline, more carbon-based, but still part of the same spiritual fabric that we're all connected to, that the whole universe is connected to. In other words, whether something is physical or non-physical, it doesn't change its essence. It's all part of the same continuum. If this resonates with you, then you know that death isn't the disappearance of a person. It's the transition of consciousness out of one form into another density level, a transcendence, if you like, a graduation from one density level to another. Without getting hung up on the names of these realms, we can all agree that to a certain extent, a body may dissolve, yet the essence remains, because we can sense that it does. You can sense that the loss isn't a real loss, but a transition. What we may get in the way of us connecting with their consciousness, even if the mind here on this density level might find it difficult too, is that we're not used to connecting on that level. So the body, their body stops, but the animating force behind it doesn't. It's simply moving, shifting, and returning to a state we cannot perceive yet because of all the mutations. We cannot perceive directly with our physical senses. So what are the reasons a soul chooses to leave? Why early? Is it karma? What is it? There are theories out there that frame karma as a system of punishment. Personally, I don't see it that way. My understanding of karma has nothing to do with being punished for something you did wrong. To me, karma is simply the natural cause and effect of energetic choices. So, it is not cruel, it is not vindictive, it's more like a universal law, a scientific law of causation, a feedback loop that helps a soul understand itself from its own trial and error, if you like. In that sense, it's actually merciful. If we look at life through the lens, that specific lens, another possibility opens up, one that many people never consider. What if a soul comes into this world, experiences what it needed to experience, but then decides on a level that we can't consciously access that its time here is finished, it's complete, it's completed, okay? It's done what it needs to do. What if leaving the world, death isn't a failure or a tragedy from the soul's perspective? From that person's perspective who just passed. It's not a failure or a tragedy, it's a choice. It's a choice they made, a transition, a return for them. Would that change how we hold the grief and how we process the grief? Would it soften the pain even slightly to know that the soul wasn't taken, but simply chose to go? Not to hurt anyone or abandon anyone, but because its journey here was fulfilled. And yes, that can happen at a very early age. That choice can create heartbreak for the people left behind, of course. But if we truly knew that the soul was in a state of peace, clarity, freedom when it left, would the grief feel different? It doesn't make the aching easy, but it can offer a different way of seeing death. Then why is pain heavy? Time is linked to experience. When pain is heavy, time stretches. When the heart is at peace, time contracts. Grief is not just emotional, it's experiential. It shapes the way we move through time. So what happens? If we shift the way we hold grief, what if instead of seeing death as a permanent loss, we see it as a transition? What if we allow ourselves to consider that spiritual essence doesn't die? The consciousness continues, that the soul is breathed in and out of source. Nothing really is ever lost. These are the questions. And for those who resonate with angelic human template, this becomes even more meaningful because the spirit realm isn't distant or unreachable. It's not another realm. It's not somewhere else. It's all within us. It's spheres within spheres within spheres. It's part of the same field of awareness we touch in dreams, in intuition, in synchronicity, and in moments of deep inner stillness. When we learn to connect with that inner realm, the same realm the soul returns to, does grief change? Does it change? Maybe it does soften. Maybe it becomes shorter. Maybe it becomes a different kind of experience altogether. Or maybe the human heart still needs time to adjust to the absence, even when the soul knows the truth. There is no single answer. But the possibility itself can bring comfort. It opens a door and it gives space to breathe. And in time where so many are leaving, maybe the best compassionate thing we can do is expand our understanding and not mourn their loss. Not to erase the pain, but to hold it with a little more light. This is where my own perspective comes in. I believe we manifest through the zodiac. The zodiac we incarnate through is not the original Christic template that we must be born through. It's an overlay that follows a sextant clock, a metatronic system that locks you in emotional loops of suffering, pain, grief, lower level vibrational states. The metatronic system, the zodiac system, currently is what sets the codes the moment you enter this density level. What puzzles me is that this system, despite being so distorted, still reflects our purpose with an uncanny accuracy. Vedic astrology can map personality, timing, life events, even potential death windows, specifically when you have Pluto conjuncting with another planet that is known to cause, destruction. It can really blow things up. It can really cause accidents that lead to death. That level of precision raises a question. If we have free will, why does the chart seem so fated? I can draw a conclusion from that, is that when consciousness descends into this density, it narrows. It goes through the overlays. It forgets its original freedom. It becomes encrypted into the zodiacal system of time loops, into lower vibrational emotional states, instead of following its original hologram, the one aligned with the internal divine blueprint of your higher soul. In that original state, manifestation is like a breath. We inhale, we appear, we exhale, we manifest. There's no death, no decay, just movement. Here in this density, we have free will, but within a framework that behaves like fate. Things feel like they're fated. The chart, the natal chart, becomes a map of possibilities, tendencies, and energetic cycles. It's not a natural system. It's a twisted one. Having said that, I go into that too, and I unlock certain dimensions that we can look at and see where we're stuck, where the shadow lies, and work through them. And this is why I use natal charts. Understanding it helps us understand why some souls leave early, it's not always punishment, karma, or tragedy. It's a soul completing its cycle within the constraints of this system. It's a choice made at a level we cannot access from here. And you may ask, where do souls return? Why do we see ghosts? Well, ghosts are actually consciousness trapped within this planetary body and remain after death as a missing portion of their original birth quantum. Missing portion of their original birth quantum, especially if we bury the body. The ghost is called the Jari in freedom teaching terminology. It's an embodied spirit identity that did not gain safe passage back into the personal AJ body in the time of biological death. So that Jari spirit will hold that image and personality of the lost physical body within the etheric body structure or the light body, and often roams in familiar environments until the etheric light body structure burns out its quantum and takes the Jari ghost identity back into this space called the Partikai space, the first unit of consciousness, within the planetary AJ body field, or when it's hosted back into a safe space and a safe passage back to its AJ body. So that's a quantum part of yourself that remains here, becomes the ghost. So, like I said, we're meant to transmigrate. We're meant to take all our quantum thrust, take it all through density layers and appear on another level. We don't have to leave the body behind, but because of the amount of mutations running through the body, that's just simply not possible. Well, at least now. So in essence, when we talk about grief, as unbearable as it is, becomes part of our journey here. For some, grief opens a heart and awakens something profound. Many people who have lost children or loved ones go on to change the world. Their pain becomes a doorway to their own purpose. For others, grief becomes too heavy, too self-consuming, and it pulls them into darkness. It's not a weakness or a failure. It's the reality of living in a matrix where consciousness is compressed and the heart is so vulnerable. However, one must try and remember that time feels real. Time, like pain, feels real here. Both are constructs of this density. Pain and time, both are constructs of this identity. Time heals because time isn't fixed. Pain shifts because pain isn't permanent. And even though we can't fully understand why some souls stay and some leave, we can hold on to one truth, and that is consciousness continues. The story doesn't end, and the love we feel for those who have passed is evident that connection is stronger than death. Additionally, time is not a neutral measurement, it's a feeling, and when pain is intense, time stretches, minutes feel like hours, days feel endless, because it's relative to how we're feeling. Time is connected to frequency bands. When we're at peace or we're in joy, time collapses. It moves quickly, effortlessly. So time is subjective. If it expands and contracts based on your emotional state, then grief is not just an emotional experience, it's a temporal one. It changes the way we inhabit reality. The spirit realm isn't out there, it's within the self. So let's look at these questions as food for thought. What if grief is not meant to be a lifelong sentence, but a passage to something greater? What if the soul that left is not gone, but simply moved into a different state of being? What if the connection isn't broken but transformed. Questions don't erase the ache, they don't remove the human longing, but they offer a different way to sit with the pain, a way that acknowledges both the depth and loss and the continuity of the soul.